Hi everyone. Today's lesson 102, is dealing with solving quadratic equations using square roots. So let's get started. The first step is solving x squared equals a. So solving everything in that format. Not all quadratic equations have linear terms, which means there is no plain x term in there. So that middle term is missing. So you can solve the quadratic equations in the form of x squared equals a by finding the square root of both sides. So in this example here, you can see x squared equals 25. We learned before that if you find, to undo a square, you find the square root. But when you find a square root of a number, you can have both a positive and a negative root. Because in this example, the square root of 25 is 5. But 5 times 5 is 25, so is a negative 5 times a negative 5. So in this example, you have two solutions. X can equal a positive and a negative 5. So let's look at an example ourselves. Here we have x squared equals a negative 16. So to undo a square, so I have x squared equals a negative 16. To undo a square, I need to find the square roots of both sides. And when I find the square root of both sides, here I cannot get an answer for a square root of a negative number. It does not equal a positive and a negative 4. So this one would be no solution. So remember, you can never ever find a square root of a negative number. Let's look at the second example. X squared equals 121. Now to find the root of this one, I need to get rid of the square. So to undo a square, I find the square roots. Square root of x squared is x. Whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other side. So here it equals a positive and negative 11. These were examples of perfect squares. So if you have a perfect square, it will come out to an integer. Now I want you to do these next two on the right yourself. The second kind of example, you have in the form of ax squared plus c equals 0. So here you just have another step to do before you can find the square root of both sides. Here, this example here, you have to subtract 3 on both sides first. So you get the x squared by itself. Then you find the square roots of both sides. And then you get a positive and a negative 7. So let's look at an example ourselves. Here we have 4x squared minus 100 equals 0. My first step is to get the 4x squared by itself. So I'm going to add 100 to both sides. So now I have 4x squared equals a positive 100. To get the x squared by itself, I'm going to divide by 4. So now I have x squared equals 25. Now to undo a square, I need to find the square root. So the square root of x squared is x. And when I find the square root of 25, I can have a positive and a negative answer, which would be 5. Let's look at the second example. 49 equals x squared minus 15. To get the x squared by itself, I need to add 15 to both sides. And when I do that, I end up with 64 on one side equals x squared on the other. Now to get this to be plain x, to undo a square, I need to find the square roots of both sides. So that leaves me with x equals, and I have a positive and a negative answer here. Square root of 64 is 8. So our answer, x can equal a positive and a negative 8. I'm going to have you do the next two yourself. Example 3, here we're approximating solutions. So not all radicans are going to be perfect squares. So here you're going to have to use your calculator to estimate the roots. And now the rule is if they don't say how to round it off to, you need to round it to the nearest thousandth place, which is 3 decimal places. So if you see in this example, x squared equals 40. 40 is not a perfect square. So when you find the square roots of both sides, you end up with square root of 40. You have as positive and negative 6.32455532. I only go through the first three places in the decimal place. I have to look at the 4th place. That's a 5. That tells me I have to round the 4 up to 5. So that's why our answer is x is about positive and negative 6.325. Let's look at an example ourselves. 8x squared minus 24 equals 100. I need to get the 8x squared by itself, so I'm going to add 24 to both sides. And when I do that, I end up with 8x squared equals 124. Now to solve for x squared, I need to divide by 8. So I'm going to divide by 8 on both sides. And I have x squared equals 124 divided by 8. Let's get our calculator out. Turn it on. We have 124 divided by 8 gives us an answer of 15.5. Now to find the square roots of 15.5. So it's going to equal a positive and negative. So I'm going to go back to my calculator. And I'm going to hit the square root button. So I hit the second button, square roots, and then 15.5 and parentheses. And that equals 3.9370. So if I only look at the first 3 decimal places, 937, the 4th one's a 0. So that tells me that my answer can only be a positive and negative 3.937. And this would be our answer. Let's look at the next example. 4x squared plus 9 equals 82. First step is to get that 4x squared by itself, so I'm going to subtract 9 on both sides. When I do that, I have 4x squared equals 73. Now to get x by itself, x squared by itself, I'm going to divide by 4. So divide this by 4. So let's go over back to our calculator. And we're going to put that in here. So we got 73 divided by 4 gives us an answer of 18.25. So I have x squared equals 18.25. To find the square roots of both sides, I go back to our calculator. I'm going to hit the second button, the x squared, and just a shortcut, I'm just going to put second answer. So my 18.25 in there, hit enter, and I have 4.27200. The 4th digit or the 4th place in the decimal is 0, so that means I keep it at 4.272. And that would be our answer. I'm going to have you work on these next two yourself. Then we have an application problem. Malik covered a cube with exactly 864 square inches of self-stick vinyl. What is the side length of the cube? Now remember, on a cube, all the sides are squares. So we have area of a square is s squared, the sides squared. But I have 6 sides of the cube, so 6 squares on it. So it's going to be area equals 6 times s squared. Now I'm going to use the information that they give me in the problem to solve this problem. They said that the cube has exactly 864 square inches. That's my area. So if I put 864 in for the area equals 6s squared, now I can find the side length of the cube. So to get the s squared by itself, I'm going to divide by 6. So if I come back to my calculator, and type that in there, we have 864 divided by 6. That gives us an answer of 144 equals s squared. To undo a square, I just need to find the square root of both sides. And so I have s equals a positive and a negative 12. But since we're finding side length, you can't have a negative 12. So the side length is only going to be a positive 12 inches. And that would be your answer. I'm going to have you do this next one yourself. Here you're just going to take the equation 16t squared minus 1600 equals 0. You have to get the t squared by itself and then find the square root of t squared and the other side of the equal sign. Your assignment for next time will be lesson 102, numbers 3 through 7, 13, 16 through 18, and 22.